Hi everyone, my name's Alexia, and today my group and I have decided to talk about fetishes, BDSM, and kinks as our topic for this project. The movie we found that best represents this topic is 50 Shades of Grey, which Kyle will cover later on. So today I'll be covering fetishes while Aiden and Brandon cover BDSM. Jared will cover kinks, since as previously mentioned, Kyle will explain why we chose 50 Shades of Grey as our movie for the topic. Okay, so what are fetishes? A fetish is something that is objectified and used for someone's sexual pleasure. For instance, if someone likes feet and need them for sexual pleasure, they might fantasize about feet or have feet in their sexual experience, particularly if they want to experience an orgasm. Next slide. Yeah. So there are thousands of fetishes. However, I will be focusing on feet fetishes. So a feet fetish has been around for a long time. However, only a little since before the pandemic, it became more accepted and a trend. Next slide, please. So selling feet pictures. So the idea of selling feet pictures for fetishes purposes gained popularity over the last few years. Since the pandemic, selling feet pictures online has become more accepted, especially because of the rise of the use of internet. Therefore, the ability to connect with individuals who share these similar interests increased, since the internet allowed them to explore the fetishes without the fear of getting judged. This led to the creation to online communities where individuals share and discuss their foot fetishism. Some people began offering foot pictures. Okay, it's fine. Foot pictures to sell in a way to earn money and fulfill the desires of those with foot fetishes. Next slide, please. Some theories suggest that the human brain is wired to associate certain body parts, such as feet and hands, with sexual arousal. Psychologists have suggested that foot fetishes may develop as a result of conditioning, where individuals learn to associate feet with pleasure through repeated exposure to foot-related stimuli. Cultural factors may also play a role in the development of foot fetishes, as more cultures place greater emphasis on certain body parts than others, as well as some individuals may find feet sexually appealing due to the shape, feel, texture, and smell, while others may be drawn to the power of dynamics involved with foot worship or foot domination. Next slide. Lastly, it was my source. The purpose of my source was it was a study aimed to help people understand how people that are asexual have kinks and fetishes, and they do engage in sexual behavior. So they used a qualitative survey with 48 participants from the age of 18 to 35. The researchers believed that using this type of survey would allow the participants to potentially give more in-depth details to their answers and to their question and feel more comfortable. The researchers were able to find that there's a difference between identity and fantasy. So by the end of the research, they found three main themes. The first one was, am I sexual? Because it was hard for the participants to identify as sexual while experiencing fantasies and sexual feelings or attractions. Second was between me and make-believe, because they focus on how kinks and fetishes and fantasies were often undesirable and impossible to live out. And lastly was kinks as a central enhancement in relationship. They emphasized how these participants use kinks as a way to build intimacy in the relationship. To conclude, the study challenges the assumption that individuals who identify as asexual have no interest in sexual activity. However, they do indeed have kinks, fetishes, and fantasies, and they do incorporate them in their daily lives and relationships. Thank you.
Alrighty, so my name is Brandon, and I'll be starting off about BDSM. So, what is BDSM? BDSM is an acronym which stands for bondage, discipline, domination, sadism, and masochism. So, now I'll define each one of these terms. So, bondage is ritual restraint, as by shackles, as practiced by many sexual masochists. Discipline and domination, it's the dominant partner restrains the submissive partner. Sadism, the practice of achieving sexual gratification through hurting or humiliating others. Masochism, the desire and need for pain or humiliation to enhance sexual arousal so that gratification may be attained. BDSM is a set of sexual behaviors and pleasures grouped into one term. People who engage in BDSM prefer the rough, more violent acts to achieve pleasure. So a simple, more like in other words, a better definition that can be understood by us is that BDSM is a sexual activity marked by physical restraints, role playing, power exchange, and occasionally even the infliction of pain. Next slide. So it's important to understand the difference between BDSM versus abuse, as like many people may get them confused. So, the average person who's unfamiliar with BDSM and who has only briefly heard of it will likely link it to abuse, but there's actually a clear distinction that is significant. So, BDSM is the use of bodily sensations to elect pleasure. It's a form of consensual power exchange where both participants are empowered. Before anything happens, each participant must give consent and come to an agreement. BDSM creates excitement to see your partner, and it relies and builds on trust. And it is created to fulfill the desires of both partners within a safe environment. And lastly, both parties can talk freely about their thoughts and emotions. And so abuse is when someone is harmed or damaged physically, mentally, or emotionally. Abuse strips away one of the parties of their authority and power. No one is given their consent, and no one knows when or how it will occur. Most people are afraid of their partners when they are abused, and any type of trust is destroyed within the relationship. Abuse creates a hostile environment that is aggressive and harsh and lacks any form of support and communication. So clearly, there's a difference that's very significant between what is BDSM and abuse. Next slide. So consumption practice within the BDSM community. So let's now discuss a particular aspect of BDSM, namely the consumption of BDSM clothing and equipment. So Juliana Guglielmi and Kelly Reddy Best conducted an interview with 19 participants aged from 22 to 45 years of age who practice BDSM, and they interviewed them to better understand the experience and meaning associated with buying and discarding BDSM equipment. So the clothes and accessories and objects that are used are key components in BDSM. It's important to understand the consumption of BDSM gear of practitioners in the BDSM community. Consumption of BDSM gear is influenced by communities, emotions, accessibility, and practicality. People in the BDSM community obtain their utilities and objects in 4 different ways, such as the internet, DIYing customized clothing, passing down their utilities, and from local community makers. So first off, let's talk about the internet. Many members of the BDSM community shop for their clothing and accessories for their wardrobe online. E-commerce sites like Amazon and Etsy are convenient places to buy BDSM equipment. Additionally, major businesses with a large online marketplace such as Walmart, Target, and Victoria's Secret make it simple for the BDSM community to buy goods. And so the site's high accessibility was a motivating aspect for BDSM practitioners to make their purchases online because it is so simple. The BDSM community has resorted to things like creating their own gear and customizing it, passing along their older gears to others, or using local manufacturers because the cost of BDSM gear may get pricey. Other considerations that BDSM practitioners use when choosing what to buy is the practicality of their gear, the physical comfort and quality, and that all these are consumption motivators when deciding what they should purchase. And so finally, the consumption is a very specific topic to BDSM, and it's much more complex than we would think. And now Aiden Rouse is going to go talk about different aspects of BDSM.
Hi, so I'm Aiden Rouse. I'm going to talk more about BDSM. So I'm going to start with the worldview on BDSM and its actual realities. So BDSM involves consensual acts of power exchanged between adults, and it's important to note that the consent and safety are the top priorities of BDSM relationships. BDSM does not necessarily indicate a psychological disorder or trauma history, as it is often portrayed as in media. People from all backgrounds and walks of life may engage in BDSM. Some individuals who practice BDSM view it as a form of liberation or self-exploration, while others view it simply as a fun or erotic activity. So when it comes to the worldview, BDSM is often stigmatized and misunderstood due to its societal taboos and stereotypes. However, there is actually a growing acceptance and understanding of BDSM as a legitimate and valid form of sexual expression. Next slide, please. So more about BDSM, and I'll be talking about the studies. So there was one study that you could see here that aimed to investigate the relationship between BDSM experience, age of first exposure, interest profile, and role identity in the BDSM community. So this study used an online survey to obtain data from a sizable sample of participants from the BDSM community. So what were the main findings? The main findings showed that there was a positive correlation between BDSM experience and age of first exposure and interest profile. And the most common role identity was actually the submissive role. So to go on, the study also found that men were more likely to take on the dominant role, whereas women were more likely to take on the submissive role. So the most common BDSM activities performed were bondage, impact play, and sensory deprivation. And it was also shown, some benefits that showed was that improved intimacy and communication between partners were actually benefits from the practice of the BDSM activities itself. So the study highlights the need for further research into psychological and social factors that influence people's interest in BDSM and the potential advantages of BDSM, including improved intimacy, communication, and self-awareness. So what were the study highlights and its limitations? Limitations of the study include self-reported data and a potential bias towards social desirability, as well as the exclusion of people who may have had negative experiences related to BDSM activities. And this study, as you can see in the bottom left corner, was by Copens et al., so multiple other authors as well. Next slide, please. So one other study by Dam and multiple other authors is called the study Unraveling Intersecting Identities, Understanding the Lives of People Who Practice BDSM. So the aim of this study is to investigate the behaviors of the BDSM community in order to understand how individuals create and experience their personal, professional, and social identities. So this study looked at the lives and experiences of people who practice BDSM from a systems and strength-based viewpoint. So what was the primary hypothesis? The study originally hypothesized that BDSM practitioners are unique and that a characteristic of BDSM communities is communication and mutual fulfillment. So the participants were recruited via email with the survey link and the online survey. And then they had 63 respondents with ages ranging from about 19 to 63, with a mean or an average of the age of 37. So the findings. The study found that people who practice BDSM undergo the function of multiple overlapping identities, the openness and disclosure of BDSM identity, and the feeling of shame, empowerment, and resilience. So the limitations and the results. A major limitation of this study is that the sample is predominantly white and well-educated people from the Midwestern region of the United States. So this is quite obvious that this is a limitation. As you can see, there wasn't much diversity. And to conclude, the study's results revealed that people who practice BDSM reside within a constellation of identities. Thank you. So now it's next to Jared.
So I will be talking about the demographic and the role characteristics of BDSM. So a study was done by St. Cloud State University, which is located in Minneapolis, and the study was done to show the demographic and role characteristics of people who engage in BDSM while also being in committed relationships, as well as discovering the satisfaction levels of these people. A common theory for before the study was that people who practice BDSM have lower satisfaction levels in general, as well as in their relationships. This stems from the fact that BDSM sways from more regular or vanilla sexual experiences. All participants were either in monogamous relationships or if they had multiple partners, they were told to focus on one partner in specific. Uh, Participants were found on two different websites, FetLife.com and EroticAwakening.com. Participants were required to fill out a survey full of questions about their experience with BDSM as well as their satisfaction levels. Results show that people who practice BDSM were happy compared to the rest of society, as well as showed similar satisfaction levels in their relationship compared to the general population. This study then disproves the common theory that BDSM is practiced by people who have lower satisfaction levels because it was able to show that these people were really just in tune with their sexuality. Next slide. So kinks. What are kinks? Kinks are unusual or weird sexual preferences or behaviors. So very similar to BDSM, it's just or foot fetishes. It's very something that it's a sexual behavior that someone prefers compared to a regular sexual experience. Common examples of kinks are attractions to hair, tattoos, piercings, various body parts such as feet and ears, and older or younger partners. The similarity between a kink and a fetish is that they are both behaviors that people like to perform with themselves or with a consenting partner. While similar, a fetish must be included in a person's sexual experience in order to be turned on, while a person who have kinks are able to get aroused without it. And so, different from fetishes, kinks do not have to be included in the sexual experience to achieve arousal, while a fetish must be included. The similarity between a kink and BDSM is that BDSM is a type of kink. Kinks just also include other behaviors. However, BDSM is definitely a kink. So BDSM is a kink and can be included in the kink category. However, kinks just refer to a broader range of possibly other sexual arousals that a person might have.
All right, so hello guys. My name is Kyle Rosen, and after attentively listening to the enlightening explanations of my amazing group members regarding fetishes, kinks, and BDSM, I will now elaborate on how 50 Shades of Grey beautifully encompasses all these topics. So, 50 Shades of Grey is a story that revolves around Anastasia Steele, who is a literature student, who interviews a wealthy entrepreneur who goes by the name of Christian Grey. And these two embark on a passionate and unconventional relationship as Anastasia discovers Grey's hidden desires and enters the world of BDSM. The film explores the complex dynamics between the dominant Christian Grey and the submissive Anastasia Steele as they navigate their intense physical and emotional connection. And amidst the central encounters, the film delves into themes of power, control, and the complexities of human desire, leading to a gripping and controversial exploration of their unconventional romance. So, the first clip that we'll be looking at is the introduction to any sort of BDSM, kinks, or fetishes. It is where Anastasia shares her thoughts on BDSM, saying that it seems like a painful and torturous activity, but Grey encourages her to keep an open mind. Yo, how do I get out of this? You see it?
Nothing important. I liked your mom.
She's excited. She's never seen me with a woman before. This is a first. What is it, Anna?
Just how many women have stayed in here?
15.
a lot of women.
I told you before, if you want out.
I don't want out. I'm not exactly jumping at the opportunity to get whipped and tortured in your red room of pain.
That room is much more about pleasure. Promise you.
Okay, so that clip involves a consensual power exchange where individuals willingly engage in activities that involve dominance, submission, and the exploration of various sensations. So Gray has to make sure that he has her consent to participate in his fantasies, because if he does not have her consent, he cannot fully fulfill his desires. Now, the second clip is another video showing Gray and Anastasia going over the rules to demonstrate the importance of consent once again.
Fifteen 20. The submissive shall submit to any sexual activity demanded by the dominant and shall do so without hesitation or argument. Turn to page 5, Appendix 3, soft limits.
With you.
Find anal fisting.
I'm all ears.
Strike it out. Strike out vaginal fisting too.
You sure?
Yeah. Same page. Is the use of sex toys acceptable to the submissive? Vibrators okay. Dildos fine. Genital clamps? Absolutely not.
Consider them gone.
So Anastasia requests a meeting to go over the rules and the contract that Gray has set up. And basically, he wants her to sign these rules so he has her consent. And these rules include everything from the submissive, being her, needed to accept any form of sexual activity from the dominant without hesitation, as well as all sex toys and tie-ups. And Gray would like to use toys such as vibrators, dildos, butt plugs, ropes, zip ties on her while they perform sexual activities, but he needs her consent, and this is why they're going over the contract. Now, the third clip that we will be looking at is how Gray and Anastasia begin to participate in the sexual activities that involve different kinks, fetishes, but primarily focuses on BDSM.
Wow, on your thoughts. Without your hand. Did that hurt?
No.
You see? Most of your fear is in your head. Come.
So in that clip, Gray and Anastasia started to explore Gray's sexual fantasies together, but it's clear that he cares for her on a deeper level compared to other submissives in the past. He demonstrates his affection by taking the time to make her feel at ease with the use of whips, ropes, and other bondage toys. And basically, through their open communication, he assures her that any fear she may have is only in her mind, and he guided her through the experience with patience. Now, in the last scene, this scene really focuses on the concept of dominance and submissiveness involved in BDSM. So Anastasia breaks one of the rules in the contract, so she is now being punished by Gray, and Gray exerts his dominance over her as he spanks her, while Anastasia must submit to him and accept her punishment for the breach in the contract.
Times. And you're going to count with me. Oh, Anastasia. What?
So in 50 Shades of Grey, the concept of kinks, fetishes, and BDSM is central to the storyline and character development. And the movie explores the dynamics of a dominant and submissive relationship between Grey and Anastasia. Um, it portrays various elements of BDSM, including bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, and sadomasochism. It also portrays Gray's BDSM fetish and his kinks for roleplay and use of sex toys. Thank you.